Something's Brewing is sponsored by Willimantic Brewing Company.
Something's Brewing takes us to Bethel. We are at a malt house. Rooster Malt Company started up 9 months ago, and they've been working with local brewers ever since. And if you drink our Connecticut craft beers, you've probably had a beer with their malt in it. James Tanner joining us now, owner of Rooster Malt Company. So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Nice to meet you. So you are a scientist by trade.
I am.
How interesting is that?
I am. It's a lot of fun. I've been a cell and molecular biologist for about 10 years at Boehringer Ingelheim Pharmaceuticals over in Ridgefield.
And you still do that, you said, full time.
I still do that full time.
And you have this business as well.
I do. This
you
is
said
a
you
side
got
business.
into home brewing.
Yes. So around 2012, my wife bought me a home brewing kit as a Christmas gift, and that sort of started this all. As I started doing more home brewing, I started to look for ways to experiment with beers, and finding local ingredients was one of the things that I thought would be interesting to look for. But as I started doing that, I found that I actually couldn't find a local malt made in Connecticut. Because I realized there might be an opportunity here to.
And here we are.
And here we are.
So you get your grains from regional farmers.
Yes.
And then just quickly take us through the process, because for someone like me that just drinks the beer,
yeah,
you don't really realize how much goes into it.
Sure. So malting is about a week-long process where we take in raw grains, and it all goes into this giant tank behind us. We steep it under cold water for 2.5 days, and then we let it, after we drain that water, we let it germinate under constant airflow. We kiln it and dry it. And then it's ready for brewing.
So by seeing this setup, you're definitely a scientist. What do you have for us today?
So this is actually a sensory method approved by the American Society of Brewing Chemists, used to sort of unlock the flavor and the aroma and the color profiles of malts. These are just some of the malts that we offer here. So starting here on the right here, this is our lightest malt. This is our Pilsner malt. It's bestseller. It's a very light, earthy flavor. It's a base malt. This is our pale malt. It's a base malt just like the Pilsner malt, but it's a little bit darker, which means it's spent more time in the kiln at a higher temperature. This is our amber malt. So this is a base malt that's been put into the roaster, actually. Okay. Right. So after we make base malt out of it in the tank, then we put it into a separate piece of equipment, which is it's just essentially a giant coffee roaster. Has really nice coffee undertones to it, but it's not quite as dark as our last one here. This is our chocolate malt, it's called, just because of the color. Yeah. And this is a very dark roasted malt, and this is what you'd find in, say, porters and stouts.
I'm gonna have a smell here. Yeah, I could see how that would go in a stout.
Yeah, very roasted coffee, like almost, right?
So James, you brought us some beer. You work with a lot of local breweries here in Connecticut.
We do. So very local to us is our biggest supporters, obviously, right? So Nod Hill over in Ridgefield, they're one of our biggest supporters. Reverie in Newtown, Voracious in Monroe, Broken Symmetry, which is just like 2 minutes from here, has used our malt before. Obviously Little House in Chester. Brewery Legitimus up in New Hartford, Kinsman. I mean, we work with a lot of local breweries.
That's great. All right, and we're going to try this. Is it a stout, right?
This is a brown ale.
Brown ale.
This is made by Little House. It's their brown ale. They poured it last week at the Small State Great Beer. This uses our roasted malt and some of our base malt.
All right, and this is your wife, Kara.
This is my wife, Kara.
She's going to toast with water today because you are due in December, right?
Yeah. Yes, I am.
All right, well, thanks for having us. This was fun.
Thank you for coming out very much. Thank you.
All right, well, Something's Brewing here at Rooster Malt Company.
Cheers.